episode of Outlook. This is a video series where we talk to different members of Students for Life around Ireland. So this week we are talking to Bernadette Harkin in Queen's University. So first of all, welcome to the series, Bernadette. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Roger. It's great to be here.
Yes, so listen, obviously before we get down to anything, we're all stuck at home. How are you finding it? How is lockdown treating you?
You know what? It has been all right. It's been all right. I just haven't been as productive as I would have liked. I haven't lost a stone or, written an award-winning novel. So, but no, it's been sort of nice as well to have a bit of time to think and not be working full time.
That's good. That's good. And you just finished college now. So were you doing distance learning or what were you doing for the last couple of weeks of term?
For the last couple of weeks, we sort of just had email contact with lecturers, but I suppose I was lucky with English anyway, that a lot of it is just independent essays and dissertations. So I don't think I suffered as much as some of my other fellow students who had, medical exams cancelled and things like that. So fingers crossed for the results anyway.
Well, please God, you'll get on well anyway. So listen, you're joining us here. We have a lot to talk about what's been going on in Belfast over the last couple of weeks. I know a lot of people are very interested in that. Before we get down to that, tell me, why are you pro-life? Like, how did you get involved?
Well, I'm pro-life for many reasons, but I think first and foremost, I'm pro-life because I believe in the dignity of every human life. I believe that a person's worth is static and it can't change regardless of age, or race, or sexuality, or the stage of development, and that every person is deserving of human rights. And I have to extend human rights to the unborn because with modern technology, we're no longer living in the 60s, whenever the Abortion Act in the UK, for example, in 1967 was enacted. You can see the baby in the womb with ultrasound, 3D ultrasounds. We now can tell the sex of a baby between 7 and 10 weeks. So we can't anymore ignore the obvious humanity of the child. They deserve to have human rights just like the rest of us.
I mean, a lot of the prenatal testing we have these days, you can identify different disabilities and stuff in the womb. And, I know that you've kind of had a personal experience of that in your own life. So could you just tell us a little bit about that as well?
Yes, well, disability rights are quite close to my heart because my little sister, Kathleen Rose, she was diagnosed with trisomy 13, which is seen as a very severe life-limiting condition. And children like her in the womb are, called fetal abnormalities and incompatible with life. But Kathleen, she's very much compatible with life. She was told, my parents were told whenever she was born that she wouldn't live past a couple of weeks, but she's now 13 years of age and she's full of life. She was told as well that she wouldn't be able to lift her head off the pillow. And now she's very active. She attends special schools. She has grown and developed so much, and she's such a wonderful personality that we have as my sibling, my sister. And she's taught my family so much about, love and about a disability that I'd never, heard of or would have been exposed to before. And I can see the value of her life and how important she is to me and my family and anyone who meets her. And yet, whenever she was born, she was brought into hospital and my parents were sat down by doctors and basically given a very bleak picture. And they basically implied that we should take her home without any, even an oxygen monitor during the winter months, to keep her regulated. We were sent home with nothing and they sort of just implied to, let her pass on. So luckily, my parents did fight for her and for her to get basic medical care like any other child. But there are so many children now who don't have someone to fight for them, and it's so unjust and so unfair. And here we are in 2020, now faced here in Northern Ireland with a very discriminatory abortion regulation being imposed on Northern Ireland.
Yeah. So before we get onto that, I know that you're sister story has been covered by Every Life Counts. Is that right? So anyone who wants to hear more about that can just go onto Every Life Counts website, and the whole story is there if you want to find out more. And obviously, if you want to get involved in Every Life Counts' work, that'd be a great thing to get involved in. So now Belfast, it's been a bit of an up and down over the last couple of weeks. So that had a lot to do with disability rights as well. So tell us what's been happening over there.
Well, where we have it now is that tragically the House of Commons have decided to pass regulations in Northern Ireland. But last week, the MPs here, a majority of MPs or MLAs here, voted to reject the imposition of the extreme regulations. And what I mean by extreme regulations is that basically Westminster want to bring in an abortion regime which allows for abortion up to birth for children with non-fatal disabilities. So children with, cleft palates, Down syndrome, and clubbed feet, who, are active members of a society that are walking around today, and they are being targeted, or Westminster anyway, if they bring in these regulations, will be allowing for children with Down syndrome, with these non-fatal disabilities, to be targeted right up until the day before they're born, which is absolutely horrifying.
Yeah, that's crazy. But thankfully we got a good result in the last week. So I know that that one person that was very influential in the campaigning over the last little while has been Heidi Crowther. She's a great disability rights activist. She has Down syndrome herself. Do you want to tell us maybe a little more about her involvement in the campaign?
Yes, I mean, I feel like Heidi Crowther single-handedly had a massive impact on how the MLAs voted last week, 46 to 40, to reject the motion from Westminster. And she is just an amazing woman. It actually struck me how alike we are in terms of where, both in our early 20s. She was engaged last year. I got engaged recently as well. She works.
Congratulations.
Oh, thanks very much. And she works so hard to campaign for people like her. And just the difference is that I don't have to justify my existence, and I don't have to justify how important I am in society. But Heidi has to, and I'll say that in her own words. She said, "I would now call for the government to not ask MPs and peers to vote for regulations that contain discriminatory provisions that tell people like me that we should not exist." And I think those words were just so powerful, and her story is so powerful, and her witness, just as a young woman who happens to have Down syndrome. And I feel like her story alone definitely changed the way that politicians here voted. And I hope that through her witness, and as well Nicola Woods, another Belfast mum of a son with Down syndrome, she basically said as well that Down syndrome people are not stupid, and they know that through these regulations they will be targeted, and we don't want to end up like Britain with 90% of children with Down syndrome being aborted.
Yeah. I mean, I know a lot of people might be familiar with the documentary there 3 years ago with Sally Phillips, the actress, focusing on the situation in Iceland, where like close to 100% of babies diagnosed with Down syndrome in the womb are aborted. I mean, obviously we don't want that in our own countries. So I mean, it's really great that there are people like Heidi who are campaigning and have had such an effect. But obviously with the political situation in the north, with devolution versus Westminster, do you think that Westminster is going to back down now that the Stormont Assembly has rejected it, or do you think they're going to still try and impose their own laws?
I hope that they do allow Northern Ireland to make their own decisions in terms of the laws here. And I know that Stella Creasy, the MP who brought forward the proposition to impose regulations on Northern Ireland, she said herself that if the Northern Ireland Assembly get themselves together, that it wouldn't be appropriate for Westminster to decide laws in this devoluted state. But despite that, though, Westminster has, continuously tried to impose laws here, and I think it is something that should concern everyone, not just pro-life advocates. I feel like it was such a disappointment that Sinn Féin did not say anything whenever historically and everything else, they should not be allowing Westminster to bring in laws to Northern Ireland. And that
since I've heard about this issue a couple of months ago, is that the Sinn Féin, the people who are supposed to be campaigning for a united Ireland separate from Britain, are actually campaigning to have Britain's laws, and it's the DUP who's kind of standing up and saying, well, we agreed in the past to have a devoluted state and to choose their own law. They're kind of fighting back against Westminster. So it's very interesting to kind of see that,
The irony is definitely not lost, but I would urge anyone in Northern Ireland who, whether you're pro-choice or you do not care about the issue at all, or you're pro-life, to definitely be contacting your MPs and local representatives, because it is a really dangerous precedent setting that we're not capable of creating and regulating our own laws here, especially since the Northern Irish Assembly, or the Northern Ireland Assembly, has been back together and functioning for the past 5 months. So it'll be interesting to see if Westminster can respect democracy and to respect our devolved government here.
Of course. So obviously, this all kind of started towards the end of last year when this minister passed the law. So it was pre-lockdown, you were on campus. How was it being in Queen's University while this was going on? Like, was there much engagement from students? Was the pro-life society involved? How did the Students' Union react? What was it like being pro-life in college at that time?
Well, I would say that being pro-life on campus is not easy, or at least being openly pro-life is not easy. The Pro-Life Society has done, incredible work to raise awareness about all of the issues facing, women and unborn children here in this part of the world. However, sadly, there was, a petition that went around to try to stop pro-life students from protesting. Whenever the abortion laws came in, they were trying to ban pro-life societies on campus. And then in the wake of all the events of last week, my Students' Union put forward a statement basically saying that they support the imposition of these regulations into Westminster, and that the DUP are, going against equality and justice, which I just found almost laughable, how sort of ignorant a statement it was to be put out, and how discriminatory and how exclusionary it was to disabled students on campus and in our general society who would be targeted by such extreme laws. And it's just sad, really, that the basic requirement of not imposing, painful late-term abortion on disabled children, was ignored by university.
The students' unions are kind of set up to represent students, and if they're kind of taking a personal stance on such a divisive issue like that, and sending out an email to students like yourselves who have kind of personal experience with this, it's shocking that that's still happening, in 2020, that they're taking such a personal stance on the issue without any regard for what what the students actually feel.
Yeah, for sure. And it is that just implication of, yes, we're a progressive university with progressive thoughts, and to say, that people with disabilities, then, their lives don't matter, that they should not be protected under the law, right up until like the day before they're born, is just awful. And it's so backwards, and the opposite of equality and progression.
Exactly.
So, yes, but with speakers like Heidi Crowder and with other students, the Pro-Life Society, other students on campus, I do have hope though for the future. Because I think with one-on-one conversations, whenever you're not, arguing online and things like that, whenever you do get to speak and sit down with people, people's minds and hearts kind of open up anyway. And they become definitely more open to opinions and understand, the implications of such an extreme law coming in,
Yeah. I mean, that can definitely be a focus for students in the next couple of years, particularly as like down in the south, we're kind of moving further past the referendum that we had here, and obviously the fight's ongoing up in the north. That we just kind of focus on one-to-one conversations, meeting our friends where they're at, and just kind of, those kind of discussions. But listen, I think we're coming over time now, so thanks again to Bernadette Harkin for joining us and telling us all about her own story, her involvement with Every Life Counts, and obviously an update on what's been going on with Stormont. So for all those watching at home, we'll be back next week with another episode of Outlook. So thanks for joining us and have a good week.